The worst part about betrayal isn't the moment you see it, it's the heartbeat right before, when you still believe everything is okay. I walked through the door that night carrying flowers like an idiot. Red roses, her favorite. My wolf hummed in my chest, calm for once because I had finally made up my mind. I was going to ask Leah to be mine forever. Ring in my pocket, future on my tongue, my whole damn heart stretched wide open and ready. And then I heard it. Not her laugh. Not the soft little giggle that used to melt me. A man's voice, low, rough, curling through the air like poison smoke. I froze. My wolf didn't. He shoved against my ribs, claws out, rage searing up my throat. My grip on the flowers tightened until thorns bit into my palm. But I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Because deep down, I already knew. Still, hope's a stubborn bastard. I told myself maybe it was the TV, maybe a friend, maybe anything but what my gut screamed. And then I pushed open the bedroom door, and the world ended. Leah. My Leah. Blonde hair spilling across our pillows, lips swollen from kisses that weren't mine, blue eyes going wide, guilty, terrified. And him. Some stranger, half-dressed, hands where only mine should have been. The ring box in my pocket burned like fire. My chest cracked open. My wolf howled, not just angry, broken, betrayed. My mate, my bond, torn apart in front of me. Ansel, wait, please, she stammered, scrambling, covering herself. Her voice didn't reach me, not past the roaring in my ears, not past the sound of my own heart shattering into pieces so sharp I swore I could feel them cutting my lungs with every breath. The roses slipped from my hand, scattering across the floor, petals bleeding red against the wood, like the joke was on me all along. I wanted to scream, to destroy everything, to rip the walls down until the house collapsed on top of us. But if I opened my mouth, I'd lose control completely. So I did the only thing I could. I turned. One step, then another. Rage crawling up my spine like fire, grief drowning me so deep I almost couldn't see. She called after me, excuses, lies, desperate little pleas, but I slammed the door shut behind me before any of them could touch me. Out on the street, my wolf clawed inside me, tearing me apart. Every muscle trembled with the need to run, to fight, to do something before I drowned in the hollow where my heart used to be. So I ran, into the night, into the dark, away from the only future I ever thought I'd have. A little while later, I didn't even realize where my feet had carried me until I was standing on Kevin's porch. The night air clung damp and heavy to my skin, my breath ragged from running, my chest aching like someone had carved it open with a blade. I should have kept walking, should have gone anywhere else but here. Instead, my fist hit the door, once, twice, hard enough that the wood shuddered. When it swung open, I almost stumbled back. Kevin stood there, tall, lean, shoulders squared, even though his eyes told another story. Blue eyes, the exact same shade as Leah's, but older, wiser, softer somehow. He looked at me like he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. Ansel? His voice was low, steady, but threaded with confusion. It's late. What? And then he must have seen my face, because he stopped. The lines around his mouth tightened. His hand, still gripping the door, flexed once. I didn't mean to. I swear I didn't. But the words tumbled out, cracked and bitter. She was with someone else. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Kevin blinked once. Shock flickered over his features, then something else. Anger, number, sadness. That deep, bone-deep sorrow only someone who's lost before could recognize. Come inside, he said quietly. No hesitation, just like that. I stepped into his house. It was quiet, too quiet. A big place, but it felt empty, like it was meant for laughter, for family, and now only shadows filled it. He led me to the kitchen, poured 2 glasses of whiskey without asking. His hands were steady, but I noticed the faint tremor when he set the bottle down. He slid one glass toward me. I drank it fast. Fire down my throat, fire in my chest. Didn't help. She was supposed to be my mate, I muttered. My voice sounded foreign, jagged. I had the ring. I was ready. And she... My throat closed. I couldn't say it again. Kevin exhaled slowly, looking at me like he was searching for the right words. Ansel, his voice softened. I know what it feels like. To lose the future you thought you'd have. I glanced at him. His eyes weren't on me, but somewhere far away. Grief shadowed his face in a way I hadn't noticed before. You lost your mate? I said quietly. He nodded. A flicker of pain crossed his features. Gone too. Fast. Years ago. And since then? He shook his head, the faintest smile tugging at his lips, bitter and self-mocking. I haven't let anyone close. Haven't wanted to. Something twisted in my chest. Not just grief this time. Something sharper, warmer. The silence stretched, but it wasn't empty. It pulsed, heavy with things unsaid. I set my glass down. My hand brushed his across the counter. A small thing. Barely a touch. But his fingers froze. The air thickened instantly, my wolf stirring, ears pricked, curious. Kevin looked up, our eyes locked, and it felt like the ground tilted beneath me. That was when I smelled it. Faint, subtle, but unmistakable. His scent shifted. Sweet, warm, tinged with the kind of heat an omega couldn't fully hide once it started. Kevin stiffened, realization flashing across his face. He drew back, shaking his head, panic slipping into his voice. No, this is wrong. You're my daughters. Not anymore, I bit out, sharper than I meant. My wolf surged at the scent of his heat, claws scraping at my ribs, hungry. Kevin took a step back, but his body betrayed him, his pupils blown wide, his breath unsteady, his scent thickening by the second. Ansel, we can't... But I was already moving closer. Close enough to feel the warmth radiating from him. Close enough to see the fine lines at the corners of his eyes, the vulnerability he tried so hard to bury. Tell me to stop, I whispered. My voice was low, rough, my wolf threading through every word. Tell me, and I will. His lips parted. No sound came out, and then his hand, traitorous, trembling, rose to my chest, pressed against my heartbeat. That was all it took. The dam broke. I caught his mouth with mine, hard, desperate, fire exploding where we touched. He gasped, half a protest, half a moan that went straight through me. His body arched into mine, his heat flaring, wrapping around me like it had been waiting all along. There was no thinking after that. No lines, no rules. Just his taste, his scent, his hands clutching at me as if he needed me to hold him up. And I did. I lifted him, pressed him against the counter, the whiskey glass shattering to the floor. His legs tightened around my waist, and he whispered my name, broken, pleading, before drowning against my lips again. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't slow. It was two starving souls colliding, filling the hollows grief and betrayal had left behind. And as his heat consumed us both, I knew one thing with terrifying clarity. This wasn't revenge. This was the beginning of something neither of us could stop. The next morning, sunlight cut through the blinds like knives, sharp and unrelenting. My chest ached, every heartbeat pounding like a drum of warning. You made a mistake. You're in trouble. You're broken. I blinked against the brightness, trying to remember how I got here. Sheets tangled around my legs. His sheets. Kevin's sheets. The scent of him lingered in the air. Sweet, musky, impossibly warm. My wolf stirred, kneading at my chest, half content, half furious, like it already knew the mistake my human brain was trying to deny. I traced the line of his jaw with my eyes. Blue eyes, closed now, eyelashes brushing his cheek. His chest rose and fell slowly, steady, deceptively calm. I remembered how he'd held me last night, how his fingers had pressed into my skin, how his heat had claimed me in ways I'd never let Leah. And a pang of guilt, sharp as a knife, twisted in my gut. The night before had been chaos, fire, temptation, and yes, maybe revenge. But when I'd felt him under my hands, the pulse of his blood, the tremor of his desire, it hadn't felt like a mistake. Not until now, with the morning pressing down on me like judgment, did the guilt sink in. Kevin stirred beside me, blinking awake. His eyes, that impossible storm-dark blue, widened with fear and confusion. This can't happen, he whispered, voice low, ragged, trembling. Ansel, you should leave. I wanted to argue, to tell him that it didn't feel wrong, that it was the only thing that ever felt right since Leah betrayed me. But my throat felt raw, clogged with shame and adrenaline. I sat up slowly. The sunlight fell across his face, highlighting the faint lines at his eyes, the curve of his jaw, the tiny scar above his lip I'd never noticed. He looked fragile, vulnerable in a way that made my wolf growl softly. I wanted to curl up with him, to soothe the tension in his shoulders, to inhale him completely and memorize him. But I knew I couldn't. Not yet. I stood, muscles stiff, shaking from more than the cold morning air. My hands trembled as I gathered my clothes, every movement heavy with the weight of the night before. I tried to pretend my wolf wasn't roaring inside me, claws scraping at my ribs, demanding him, claiming him. The door closed behind me, but his scent didn't leave. It clung to my skin, burned in my lungs, pulled at me like a tether I couldn't cut. I walked down the street trying to ignore the ache in my chest, the tension coiling through me like a live wire. We had begun something we shouldn't, but the guilt didn't erase the truth. I didn't regret him. Not yet. Not ever. A month later. I tried to forget. I really did. Dates were disasters. I'd sit across from someone else, forcing a smile, tossing my hand lightly in conversation, but every laugh felt fake, hollow. My wolf snarled in frustration whenever I touched anyone else. Their scent, too bland, too familiar, too weak, made my stomach churn. I hated it. I hated them. I hated myself. I was angry at Leah, feeling betrayed and frustrated. And yet, Kevin, always Kevin. The memory of him pressed against me in my mind at night. His warmth, his scent, that soft, subtle moan he'd made the first time he'd let go. It clung to me, a ghost I couldn't shake. I caught myself replaying our collisions, every brush of his fingers against mine, every stolen gasp, every whisper in the dark. I started walking past his street more than I'd care to admit. Sometimes I didn't even move my legs, just leaned against the lamppost and stared at the warm glow of his window. I imagined him reading, pouring tea, humming softly, trying to lose himself in the mundane to hide the ache we had made together. There were nights I swore I could smell him in the air even blocks away. Musky, heavy, layered with the faint spice of his cologne and something primal that was only his. My wolf twitched at it, snarling low in my chest, hungry, desperate. Every time I saw him by chance, leaving for work, stepping out to grab groceries, our eyes met, even for a fleeting second, and my wolf practically tore at me from the inside. His wolf, mine, tangled, calling, needing. The pull was unbearable. I tried to call it moving on, dating others, pretending, burying myself in work, workouts, patrols, but each attempt felt hollow, like drinking water that burned down my throat. My wolf called it starvation, and every night when I returned home alone, I pressed my pillow to my face and inhaled the faintest memory of Kevin's scent on my own skin, trying to soothe the ache that no human touch could ever fill. 2 months later. The moon cut silver lines through the branches, painting the woods in a ghostly light. I found him crouched over a bundle of herbs behind the pack house, the faint scent of earth and old leaves clinging to him. His silhouette looked fragile, impossibly soft, yet there was power in his posture, restrained like a coiled spring. When he saw me, his whole body froze. The air thickened, electric. I could feel the tension radiating off him, a charge that made my teeth ache, my chest thrum. My wolf growled low, shivering under my skin, sensing the pull of his mate, the scent that had latched onto me weeks ago and refused to leave. "You shouldn't be here," he said first. His voice was tight, trembling, a vulnerability I'd never heard. "Neither should you," I shot back, though my own words cracked like glass. We stood there, two wolves, and for a long moment, nothing moved. The wind whispered, the leaves rustled, and somewhere in the dark, our wolves growled softly, calling across the invisible thread binding us. "I tried," he said finally, voice low, almost pleading. "I tried to forget, to pretend none of it happened. But I can't. I hate myself for feeling this way. For wanting this, I stepped closer, heat flaring in my chest, claws of my wolf scraping my ribs, desperate to merge with his warmth. Why hate yourself for needing something real?" His throat bobbed as he swallowed, vulnerability open and raw. "I haven't felt alive since my mate died," he admitted, his voice cracking. "Not until you touched me." It hit me like a physical blow, chest tightening, knees weak. That was exactly how I felt. Lost, broken, starved, and yet alive in ways I hadn't imagined possible. Our bodies collided then, slow, testing, desperate. Hands brushed, claws raked gently over shoulders, teeth caught lips in hungry bites, mouths claiming, tasting, seeking. Every gasp, every shiver, every stolen moan was fire. Fire that seared through months of denial. Starvation, craving, need. All of it crashing down, unrelenting. I felt his heartbeat in my chest, our wolves tangled, our scents weaving into something impossible to hide, impossible to resist. We didn't speak. We didn't stop. Only the world of the forest, the moonlight, and our pounding hearts existed. That night, I realized with terrifying clarity, this wasn't desire. It wasn't lust. It was fire, fate, and blood calling to blood, and neither of us could run anymore. 5 months later. I never thought I could crave someone like this. Not Kevin, not my ex's father. And yet, every time I was near him, my wolf ached, my chest burned, and everything else blurred. We settled into a rhythm, quiet and dangerous. Nights he was alone, I'd sneak over after patrols, knock softly. He'd open the door with that look, the one that made my blood thrum in my veins, that made my wolf howl softly at the warmth in his scent. Just one glance, one brush of hands, and the world righted itself for a little while. Kevin had changed, softer, lighter. His laugh came easier, low and warm when he thought no one was listening. His shoulders weren't tense anymore. Every little smile, every casual brush of fingers tethered me closer to him. I learned his routines. Tea at 10 p.m., books piled high on his nightstand, his cat curling in the windowsill. I memorized it all, just so I could imagine him when I couldn't be there. Every touch, every whispered word, every stolen night pressed the bond tighter between us. But secrecy is a cage, and it rattled constantly. The tension had been building for weeks, quiet and unspoken. Leah somehow had started asking Kevin questions, casual, innocent ones, but I knew what they really were. Her curiosity, her suspicion, it gnawed at him, and I could see it in the way he started backing off, pulling away little by little, trying to bury the desire we'd ignited. It was killing me. My chest ached, my wolf restless, claws scraping at my ribs like it wanted him all over again. I couldn't let him pull away. Not now. Not ever. That night, I followed him to the study, silent, watching as he absently answered one of Leah's questions over the phone. The flicker of guilt, or maybe shame in his eyes, made my wolf growl low in my chest. I stepped closer, letting my hand brush against his arm. Heat flared instantly between us. "Kevin," I murmured, voice rough. Low, he froze, blue eyes darting to mine, hesitation thick in the air. "Ansel? Maybe we should..." I didn't let him finish. My wolf flared, claws coiling beneath my skin, need roaring hot in my chest. I grabbed him, pressed him against me, and sank my teeth into the sensitive spot at his neck. Soft, sharp, claiming. The taste of him, the warmth of his blood, and the spike of his heat hit me like fire. His eyes went wide, a shiver running through him. What did you do?" I pulled back just enough to look into his storm-dark eyes, letting my lips brush over the bite. "What should have happened the first night?" I murmured, voice low, rough with need. "You know it's right. You feel it too. You're my mate." His breath hitched, chest rising and falling fast, wolf instinct flaring in him. He wanted to pull away, but his body betrayed him, leaning closer, craving the claim, craving me. And in that bite, that single, heated, possessive bite, everything changed. We weren't just two men anymore. We were fated, bound, and the world outside could burn. A few weeks later, it happened in an instant. Leah, at the door, her fists clenched, her face twisted in fury and disbelief. I was pressed close to Kevin, our chests barely apart, his hand brushing mine in that casual, intimate way that was ours. His scent was thick, wild, intoxicating, alive. Alive in a way I hadn't seen in years, and she saw it. "You..." Her voice shook. "With him? My father?" My wolf growled low, protective and angry, claws dragging beneath my ribs. My chest thundered with adrenaline and heat. "You're disgusting," she spat at me. "Both of you. How could you?" Kevin stepped forward, trying to speak, to reason, but she cut him off with a scream. "You're pathetic. Letting him, replacing Dad. And you're nothing but a sick, pathetic alpha who couldn't control yourself." I stepped closer, claws lightly scraping the air, wolf growling low in my chest. "Stop," I said, voice cold, sharp as a blade, heat thrumming beneath my words. "Don't you dare try to lecture me about control, about shame." Her face twisted, eyes blazing, but I didn't flinch. "You cheated," I spat, words like fire. "You threw me away the second you wanted someone else. You never loved me. And don't think for 1 second that you cared about your father, except when it suited you, when you wanted something, when it benefited you." Her mouth opened, stammering, but I wasn't done. "Look at us," I said, voice low, dangerous, my wolf coiling, scent claiming Kevin without hesitation. "He's mine. Not because of you, not because of your lies or your games, but because he chooses me, because he's my mate. And the only thing real in this room, the bond between us." Kevin's eyes met mine, fire, desire, claiming, and I felt his wolf pressing against mine, heart thundering in sync. I leaned closer, letting my heat and presence wash over him, marking him in a way that was visible in every glance, every touch. "And no one," I whispered, claws grazing his shoulder, teeth grazing the curve of his jaw, "not even you can touch that." Leah staggered back, anger and shock battling in her features. But all I felt was satisfaction, wolf roaring, chest heaving, knowing that nothing she said or ever did could undo what had been claimed that night, what had been bound between me and Kevin. The house shook with the weight of our desire, Every gasp, every groan, every stolen moan a proclamation. This was ours. And for the first time, I didn't care about scandal, about Leah, about the world. All that mattered was Kevin, the bond that had begun the night I stumbled onto his doorstep, broken, desperate, and unclaimed, had cemented itself in fire and blood. And as our mouths collided again, wild and unapologetic, I knew one terrifying, perfect truth. Nothing and no one could ever undo this. Soon afterwards, the pack hall smelled like tension, sweat, and old wood. Every face turned toward us the moment I stepped in with Kevin at my side. Whispers slithered through the room, quick, sharp, like knives cutting the air. Did Ansel really? Her father. We were called to the elders' hall. I felt their eyes on us, some curious, some judging, some disgusted. But my wolf roared beneath my skin, pressing against Kevin's, claiming him without words. His heat radiated into me, and suddenly the weight of their judgment didn't matter. Not when I had him, not when he was mine. Leah stormed in, eyes blazing, fists trembling. This is disgusting!" she screamed, pointing at us like she could physically shove the truth away. "How could you do this? My father and you, Ansel? I thought you loved me." I didn't flinch, my chest burned, my wolf prowling beneath my skin. I stepped forward, hand brushing Kevin subtly as a silent reminder. We were one. "Yes," I said, voice steady, carrying across the hall. "I am with him. My mate. And this bond isn't shameful, it's real. It's fate." The hall fell silent. Whispers ceased mid-word. The air hung thick with tension as Kevin's eyes met mine. There was fear, yes, but also pride. The pride of a man who had found life again after grief, who had chosen love over shame. Leah's face twisted in disbelief, fury, and desperation. "You're going to ruin everything. The pack will never forgive you." Kevin straightened, shoulders back, chin lifted. "Let them whisper," he said, voice strong, steady, unwavering. "I won't live in shadows. I won't hide anymore. Ansel is my mate, my claim, my choice, and no one will make me feel ashamed of that again." I could feel the room shift. Eyes widened, some mouths opened, some closed tight. The elders exchanged glances, murmurs passing quietly, and slowly, the pack began to accept it. Not out of love for us, but understanding the depth of a bond that could not be denied. Leah's scream faded into disbelief, a mix of rage and helplessness. And in that moment, my wolf purred, my chest heaving with relief, and I knew the world could burn around us, but Kevin and I, our bond, was untouchable. Later, after the hall had emptied and the whispers had simmered into distant echoes, Kevin and I stood alone. The moonlight poured through the large windows of the house, painting silver streaks across his broad shoulders. My wolf howled softly at the scent of him. Sweet, intoxicating, warm. I stepped closer, hands brushing along his chest, feeling the heat that had haunted my dreams for months. His eyes flickered down at me, hesitating, torn between fear and desire, shame and longing. "You're mine," I said softly, letting my claws lightly drag over his back in a possessive, tender claim. "And I don't care what anyone else thinks. I won't hide anymore. You're my omega, my mate, my forever." Kevin's lips trembled, and I saw the war in his eyes, the grief, the guilt, the hesitation, all melting into something deeper. Slowly, deliberately, he reached up, pressing his palm to my chest, feeling my heartbeat beneath his fingers. He breathed, voice low and quivering. "I've been afraid. Afraid of loving again, afraid of shame. But I can't hide anymore. Not from myself, not from you. You," he swallowed, eyes blazing now with fire. "You make me feel alive, Ansel. You make me whole. And I claim you. I accept your mark. I accept you. All of you. Every part of you. My wolf roared inside me, claws scraping gently, urging, claiming, as I pressed forward. Our bodies collided, heat roaring, hearts pounding in sync. His hands tangled in my hair, my hands in his, pulling him impossibly close. And then, as our lips met, as our mouths claimed each other in hunger and devotion, I pressed my forehead to his. "Alpha and Omega," I whispered, voice rough with emotion. "Mate and mate, scandal be damned. Everyone else can talk. We belong to each other." Kevin shivered, smiling through tears, and pressed a lingering, possessive kiss against my neck. "Forever," he whispered, and I felt it, the final sealing of our bond. We stood there in the moonlight, bodies entwined, hearts synced, wolves coiled and satisfied, letting the world burn with whispers and judgment around us. Nothing else mattered. The pack could gossip, Leah could scream, but we were claimed, bound, and unstoppable. And as I felt his heat pressed into mine, our scent mingling and marking each other beyond the possibility of denial, I knew it. This was destiny, scandal, and love, burning brighter than any shame could ever touch. 7 years later. 7 years. 7 years since the world tried to shame us. 7 years since the night I stumbled onto Kevin's doorstep, broken, desperate, and claimed by something I never expected. And here we were, married, our bond deeper than blood, deeper than time, deeper than any scandal that had ever tried to reach us. The morning sun poured through the windows, painting gold streaks across our bedroom. Kevin's bare chest rose and fell beneath the sheets, his arms wrapped around me, our wolf scents mingling in a heady, intoxicating haze that made my chest ache with contentment. I traced the lines of his face, the curve of his jaw, the faint freckles that had always made me pause, and smiled. "Morning," I whispered, brushing my nose against his. "Morning," he replied, voice low, warm and thick with sleep, and something else, a promise that hadn't faded in 7 years. We rolled together, playful and easy now, heat and hunger simmering just below the surface. My wolf purred at the contact, coiled happily against his, a constant reminder that this was ours, that we had survived everything, the scandal, the pack whispers, Leah's fury, and had emerged stronger, unshakable. Our pack had accepted us long ago, the elders nodding quietly at the undeniable fact. A rare Omega and Alpha mates, each claiming and strengthening the other, a bond unbreakable. Leah? We had severed ties. She had burned bridges with both of us years ago, and neither of us cared. Her betrayal and rage were ghosts in our past, irrelevant now. Kevin laughed, low and throaty, tugging me closer until our teeth grazed, our breaths mingling. "You always make mornings dangerous," he teased. "And you make mornings worth waking up for," I replied, pressing my lips to his shoulder, to his jaw, tracing the faint scars and lines I loved more than anything else in the world. We moved together with the ease of time and love. No secrets, no shame, just warmth, heat, and connection. My wolf twined with his, marking him and being marked, a silent, constant claim that neither of us would ever question. Later, we would walk through the woods behind our home, hand in hand, laughing at stories the pack still whispered in private, memories of the chaos we had survived. Our home was ours, warm, full, filled with laughter and scent. The bed still rumpled from nights that ended in heat and joy. 7 years. Married. Bound free. Scandal forgotten. Our bond unbroken. Our lives entwined. And as Kevin rested his forehead against mine, blue eyes sparkling with love and mischief, I knew that this messy, taboo, burning, undeniable love was my forever. "No regrets?" he asked softly. "Never," I whispered, wolf and heart both howling in agreement, and pressed a kiss to the pulse at his neck. My claim, my mate, my life. We had survived everything, and now, 7 years later, we were unstoppable, together, finally, forever. The end. Would you risk everything for a love that feels like fate, even if it's forbidden? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to become part of our Rainbow Force, and consider joining our membership for early access and exclusive content. Stay wholesome.